Alright guys, such comic again today. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Neptune with a few thoughts on the Los Angeles Thieves roster, suggesting they did not make the best decisions with their roster changes going into this most recent season, getting rid of Ghosty, getting rid of Envoy, now with Neptune on that Gentlemates team. Neptune says that, look, Thieves did not enable those guys as well as they could have done with the talent that they have on that roster instead, and that's not helping with their new iteration is the implication as well, compared to what Gentlemates are currently up to on their side of the pond. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. We'll get back to some of Ghosty's numbers here in a second, but yeah, his numbers so far in this game, pretty ludicrous. Number 1 KD in the game, number 1 hardpoint KD in the game, most hill time per 10 in the game as well. So his stats on this one are actually, even so far anyway, better than they were last year in terms of hill time, but yet he's still getting all the kills. And it's one of these interesting ones with Ghosty. When Ghosty first came in, we talked about a Lurqxx earlier today, we talked about Mercules in recent years. Ghosty was absolutely frying in challenges. He was dropping 1.3s. He came into the Pro League. He stepped into a different role. And that has been reflected in the way that people perceive Ghosty. But it's not like he doesn't have the ability and the talent to also deliver great individual stats. And then when he does, and he can combine both, look, he might not always be the easiest guy to team with. I think we've definitely seen that, because if he was, probably some of the team decisions that have been made against him over the last few years wouldn't have happened. But the bottom line is, you can't deny the value that Ghosty can and continues to bring to teams. And, well, the implication anyway from Neptune is that maybe Thieves made a pretty big mistake moving on from him. Just quickly, there was quite the talk from OpTic about the state of Call of Duty right now and, well, the way that things are going to go in the near future. There was a rumour I saw floating around the other day, which is not a massive surprise, that Modern Warfare 4's gameplay, so the game that's coming out next year, the Infinity Ward title, is effectively Modern Warfare 2 from a couple of years ago, but just rinse and repeat, right? We're basically just running it back. I don't think that's a good direction, but it is how Call of Duty is going right now, and we've talked a fair bit about the fact that Black Ops 7 has not delivered the sales that they were hoping for. I think probably Activision Microsoft are putting that mostly down to the fact that we've just done Black Ops 6 and then Black Ops 7 straight after. The feeling is that they probably recognise that it's a pretty good game from a multiplayer angle. The campaign definitely left, I think, a fair bit to be desired. So, difficult times for COD. Whether they'll change their approach of a yearly release, I think they will probably have to at some point, but as long as they think they can still get away with it, then, you know, that it seems is what they're going to do. But the point is that the way that Black Ops 7 has gone has been good, I think, for the fans, for the community, for the players. People are generally on board with this. But what we're not so on board with, it seems, is moving away from that again, back to what Infinity Ward and Joe Secret have been cooking up in the past. I think it's also a bit of a concern for some of the veteran players. You know, I'm not sure Dashy's just going to retire, but Dashy has kind of implied a little bit as to, like, well, you know, if we were to win champs again, and then we're going back to some sort of Infinity Ward slop game, you know, do I really want to play that again? A lot of the one of the reasons why BO7 is so popping right now, challenges, pro scene, whatever, is because everyone's enjoying the game for the most part, right? They're enjoying playing it competitively. It's fun to play, certainly better than we've had for the last few years. Loads of names in challenges. So, you know, the scene is better for the game being better. Shock horror. But if the game is not so strong, at least from a competitive perspective and an entertainment value and all that stuff, then it creates a trickle-down effect. So, yeah, that's what the OpTic boys are saying. Look, stop listening to people that have played 2 hours of COD in the last 10 years. Black Ops 7 is fire. We got to keep running it up along these lines. But I'm not sure that the executives at Activision are listening to the OpTic audio network. So we'll see about that. A couple of bits of drama on Cellium. We've not really had a follow-up quite yet on what, if anything, could be happening here. Maybe Ghosty and the Gentleman's Agreement Commission will have some thoughts on Cellium. It was pretty funny yesterday because then he was gassing up Cell for good reason, right? Like, you know, Cell is not a bad player for sure, but is he in this game going to be an absolute, you know, considered a top AR? Possibly, but Falcons will need to be considered a top team for that to really be true. I think everyone recognises that to a certain extent Cellium has taken the bag in exchange for, you know, we'll see how good they can actually be over time. But, you know, Zinni says, Cell's heavily disrespected, he's still disgusting, and he's still snaking, right? Because we saw that a few minutes later, that he was all over the shop when it came to the Game 4. Falcons bring the comeback, they go on to win the series. There was a fair bit of reaction to this. Pretty much everyone agreed, red card, will he get blacklisted? we'll see about that one. These are the way the CDL standings are looking so far. So we've played a good couple of weekends of matches now. As I say, no more matches before Christmas, after Christmas, before the start of January again in the run towards Major 1 and the end of January in Dallas, OpTic's home major. Right now they're looking good to start off the season strong with a nice little #1 seed. We'll see if they can convert that in the new year. Of course, let's not forget they were the #1 seed last year for Madrid. Then things didn't go to plan when they turn up to the major. But OpTic #1 seed, they're 3-0, the only team to still be undefeated in the league so far, 9-3 map count. Gentlemates in seconds. Then Toronto, Thieves, Boston, FaZe. I mean, all those guys are tied in 2-1, but the map count goes the way of Gentlemates for now. The other guys are filtering in from there. FaZe at 2-1 with a 6 and 7 map count, pretty interesting. Falcons, the only team were they to play 4 times. Yeah, it's a bit of a strange dynamic in terms of which matches got played before the Christmas break than maybe normally happens. But Falcons played 4 times, bang in the middle of the road, 7 and 7 win-loss, 2 and 2 map win-losses or series win-loss as well. Cloud9, Heretics, G2, Ravens, Surge. So taking shape, but yeah, maybe some teams slightly higher than expected, some teams slightly lower than expected. Again, it all massively depends on strength of schedule so far in the season. Couple of other funny clips that were going around. This one actually did some serious numbers yesterday. Near enough 9,000 likes on Twitter. Was Bose, because he did this tweet technically in February 2024 when he officially retired, and Former was like, hang on a second, what do you mean you retired last year? You've been running this watch party game for the last several years. But speaking of the pro teams, Neptune was on stream talking about what happened when they formed this Gentlemates roster, because I thought the Gentlemates team was going to be pretty good. There's certainly a lot of talent on that roster for sure. On paper, their team is nice. There were questions on personality clashes and this type of stuff that may still be relevant as time goes on, but for now it's all looking rather rosy in Paris. And apart from OpTic, I think most would consider Gentlemates to be the best team, the second best team in the game effectively, behind the green wall. So when OpTic were playing against Miami and he was watching this series on stream, Neptune was giving some thoughts to the chat on how it all transpired, right? How did they turn up on the Gentlemates roster instead of other directions? How did they manage to get the players from LA Thieves that they parted ways with? It is interesting, of course, in hindsight that LA Thieves did make the moves that they did, right? You could look at their team and say, they won 2 majors last year. FaZe did the same. They also won 2 majors last year, but yet they still, because they bombed out of the biggest tournaments of the year, made some radical changes. Maybe that was a mistake, but I can also understand it, right? Like when you do win, but then you bomb out of the biggest tournaments, I do understand why those teams made a change. I think really the big what if to a degree is maybe what if Simp and aBeZy still stayed together this year? Maybe it could have been their game, but that's not how it's gone. It's opened the door maybe for OpTic to keep doing their thing, but it's also maybe opened the door for Gentlemates to say, okay, no, actually, we are the key challengers for the new season rather than any of you guys. Neptune certainly implies he feels the same way. Again, it's a funny comment here from Neptune because he's like, well, no disrespect, right? I'm not obviously throwing any shade on those guys, but ... So, look, he's not intentionally disrespecting them or anything, but it's kind of when people say, respectfully, comma, and then proceed to disrespect, it doesn't really change the value of the commentary. So Neptune is like, look, no shade on those guys, but I'm better, and I've been able to effectively unlock those guys better than Scrap and HyDra in a way. And I think that's his overall logic, is like, look, Envoy and Ghosty were better players, and he recognized that they were better players than they were being perceived as with the way that they were being forced to play on the Thieves. Not to say that the way that Thieves played with Scrap and HyDra leading the line was necessarily wrong, but just it exposed Ghosty and Envoy to playing in ways that they didn't necessarily have to. And Neptune believes that with him on the team, he is effectively, when you compare to someone like HyDra, in Neptune's opinion, more of a, maybe not a team player precisely, HyDra is a world champion, but more of a player who's going to help all of the players on the roster deliver their best performances in the server.
What was the process of putting this team together? So basically, obviously I got hit up by Gentlemates. They told me who I would want to play with. I said, if Envoy and Ghosty are available, I want to play with them for sure. And I also told them straight up, I was like, I think you guys are gross. I felt like last year you guys were very underrated. And I told them that they're not going to have to And this is nothing. I'm not dissing LA Thieves at all. But I'm just saying, with me, you're not gonna have to do all of that shit you were doing last year. Like I can pick up. Like I feel like I can do anything on the map. If I need to sit in the hill, I'll sit in the hill. If I need to blitz, I'm blitzing. You feel me? Like
I just think it could do a lot of damage to his career long term if it continues this way. Like I think he needs more COD IQ. I think he needs more reps. Like comparing it to Shotzzy, right? Shotzzy was playing Black Ops 4 wagers for a year straight, so he got some COD IQ there. He's playing next to Crim and Clay, so he's got literal vets, the best to ever do it, helping him sort of find his ground, and it still took him some time. I feel like right now Lqgend's fighting an uphill battle. He's surrounded by a very young cast. There's not really any veteran leadership, and everyone's looking at him to come in here and fry. I don't think it's going to happen right now. Like, I think he needs more reps, and the issue with the current state of the CDL is you don't really have time anymore. Like a bad stage is enough to
how much time do you
knock
give
you out
him,
of
though?
champs.
Exactly. That's what one bad stage. Now you're kind of relying on going to a major and placing like top 3 to try to catch up in points. And right now, I just don't see that happening. So it's like, how big of a hole are they willing to dig and have to claw their way out?
So this is a very interesting question to keep our eyes on going forwards, because on Los Angeles Thieves, Ghosty and Envoy were effectively the 2 best objective players in the game last year. Ghosty was getting all the hill time, Envoy was doing a lot of the dirty work, as we know, as well, and it worked out for Thieves. Scrap and HyDra, unbelievable duo. Their effectiveness, their numbers, like absolutely ludicrous all season long. There's a reason why they won the events that they did, but also you can argue there's a reason why they lost at the biggest tournaments in the way that they did. And look, there was lots of pressure on Ghosty and Envoy because of their performances, right? They had some pretty bad numbers in that stint towards the end of the season, and as a result of that, to a degree, they were dropped. Now, not to say that it's all going to be perfect with Gentlemates. I'm sure that they will have difficult times this year. I'm sure that there will be slumps that they have to work their way through, and we'll see how they affect that as and when they get there. But the point, I guess, that Neptune is making is that under a Scrap and HyDra dynamic, it makes the other players on the team's job very challenging indeed. HyDra has also clashed with other teammates in the past, as we know, and as incredible a player as I think HyDra is, I think HyDra is, when you watch his POV, it's either one of the best POVs or right up there, or certainly one of the most talented players in the league, if not the most talented, right? Like, HyDra's POV is incredible. But you might argue that because of that, and the way that Scrap and HyDra want to go about things, it makes their teammates' jobs very hard. And Kenny, and even to some degree aBeZy, are maybe feeling the consequences of that. And that's what's interesting about this Thieves team, and all the talk about Lurqgend that we discussed earlier on today, is that, okay, maybe Thieves and maybe even Kenny, they need to figure out a way to better use that talent in terms of converting it to victories than what they've done. Because right now it feels that Neptune's approach of what he is, not he has done exactly, but the approach that Gentlemates have taken with Ghosty and Envoy to allow them to also play at the skill level that they can have, but was not often on display with Thieves last year just because of how things tend to go, that might be a beneficial factor, right? So yeah, very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. The other clip, of course, there was on Legends, and you know, what do they do about it? Because as was said with Surge, they're struggling, the point standings, they're currently last. They've not won a map yet. They're 0 in 9 map counts. It's not looking good already for those guys if you talk about the World Championship. So, look, they're digging themselves a hole. It's a pretty big, deep hole at the moment. Can it get deeper? Absolutely it can if they decide to keep running it up as they presently are. Will they do that? Probably, but maybe not for too much longer. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
Bro, like, you know what I realized about you? You're all about like the efficiency, not efficiency stat, but like, you know how like some NBA shooters shoot like 70% from 3, but they've only shot like fucking like 10 shots? You're one of them. You're one of these guys, bro. You think you're shooting better because your percentage. Yeah, bro. But wall bounce, you're not, you're wall bouncing maybe 3 times a set.
I'm taking that fucking 70% all day. All day.
Like, I'd rather be Klay Thompson, bro, in his prime. Shooting 40, bro, but I'm shooting like 500 threes.
But, bro, I'm not gonna lie. You trying to start this narrative. You're not on the fucking wall at all this year.
Bro, what? Chad, am I moving? I'm looking moving. Trying to get them involved, like, to someone save me.
I'm telling you.